It happens at one point or another. You get some feedback at work that is not great. Maybe it's bad. Maybe they are putting you on a performance improvement plan, also known as a PIP. So in this video, I'm going to help you get through a bad review and formalize your next steps. Because a lot of people get negative feedback at work. We just don't talk about it. So you are not alone. But the first thing to do is to keep your cool. You need to take some time because you want to react without emotion. We want to stick to the facts. Sometimes you need a day or two to think it through, hopefully not more than 4 or 5 business days to respond. And before you respond, I do encourage you to take some time for reflection. Did anything there resonate as true? Because a lot of times we hear some constructive feedback, something negative, and it's hard to really absorb it in the moment because we're just so jarred by something that we weren't expecting. So be real with yourself. Truth be told, was there any truth to this feedback? Is there anything that you could do better or at least differently? Okay. So get real with yourself. And even if you think your boss was wrong, is there anything that sounds right? And one way to do that is to get feedback from others, check in. And this is another example of why self-awareness, a part of emotional intelligence, of EQ that I talk about a lot, self-awareness is critical. It's important for us to know ourselves and how we are being perceived at work, because this might be an example of that type of mismatch. Okay, so the second thing you want to do is schedule a time to clarify and really ask for examples if they didn't provide them yet. Get as specific as they can. A lot of times managers say, well, I want you to do better at this. Well, what does better look like? Does that mean more concise, different format? Really make sure that you're aware of what these standards are that they're talking about that you did not meet. Because whenever you get feedback that you don't agree with or you weren't expecting, it just indicates that we have expectation failure. Okay. So now use this as an opportunity to get on the same page. One bad review does not mean you have failed entirely. It could just mean your boss had an expectation of work product looking like one way and you had it another. Because I had a boss once, he had just taken over the department. He didn't really know me that well, but he said there's always room for improvement. But he didn't say anything beyond that. So here I am, 23 years old, and I have no idea what he's talking about. So get example of what these standards are that they mentioned that you might be falling behind. Now, if they use general terms like better or improve, get specific. And if they mention speed, this is a big one. Oh, your work needs to be more timely. Okay, well, what is that expectation? Is it by end of day, by Friday? Make sure that in real time, you are getting clarity on the expectation for that deadline. And I think that's good advice for anyone, especially if you're in a new job. When someone says, hey, I need you to work on this, you say, great, can I get it to you by Friday? Or when do you need it? To make sure that you are indeed on the same page. Now, the third thing is your action plan, both professionally and personally. Now, maybe they gave you an outline, maybe they summarized it for you, but if not, it's up to you to summarize the next steps. You want to make sure that you and your boss now have this shared document that you've both agreed upon, what you're going to work on, and what type of support are you going to get? Is there additional training? Is there someone else in the department who can mentor you? And set a date to follow up. You want to see a couple of weeks later, a month or two later, how are you making progress? Maybe you did have some new accomplishments that you could get validated. And maybe it's a time, again, to get further clarification along the way of what they mean when they want you to do things differently. And make sure to ask them, does this address some of the things we talked about? So you then get it on record to affirm that you are headed in the right direction, and write it down. Documenting is everything. Now, you might have your own personal next steps here, right? What do you want to do about this? You have plenty of options. Maybe there was some truth in it and there's some things that you want to improve. So you work on that there with your boss. And maybe there's another department or a project you could be on that you think is a better use of your skills. And maybe you want to leave entirely. I would still try to see, is there anything that I need to improve from this performance feedback? Now, there may be a conversation about discrimination. If you think something else is at play, you certainly should talk to human resources. But I got to tell you, as someone who has been a manager for many years and I worked in human resources for many years, sometimes we have bosses, it's not discrimination, they're just jerks. They're not supportive. A lot of times, what I also see is favoritism. And I used to see this a lot when it comes to sort of old guard, new guard. And I have been on both sides of that. I have been hired as the new guard to shake things up and to implement new programs. So I get a lot of resources and attention. And then you've got the people who are old guard thinking, hey, what about us, right? But then sure enough, here I was there 4 or 5 years, and a new manager came in, and all of a sudden I was old guard again. So sometimes favoritism is really what's at play. Again, all the more important that you are documenting everything, their expectations, the deadline. I do have an entire podcast episode dedicated to just performance review tips in general. So you might want to check that one out. Okay, so let's get to it. Let's get to that PIP. If you have what's called a performance improvement plan. Now, there has been a lot of conversation, a lot of candid conversation online about PIPs. And it's hard to get really verified data on this, but most people say that when they get a PIP, they think it's time to go. They ask me, does the company really want you to even stay? Now, if you get a PIP, they might. Many times people use it as a way to light the fire under an employee who they feel that they've given feedback to, but it just has not stuck. Now, I can think of 2 times when I have given a performance improvement plan or some version of it to different employees. And with one woman, I did want her to improve. She did really well at certain things. And sometimes she would just get distracted, and I needed to keep bringing her in. So it was a matter of really sitting her down to let her know that we really needed her to focus. And it worked. Then there was another situation with a gentleman. We tried giving him feedback. We tried hiring a coach, and he really wasn't having it. And so we had written some things up. Sure enough, he got another job. He gave 2 weeks notice, and that's how it went for him. But yes, PIPs are used by companies to cover themselves for sure. Because let's face it, a PIP is usually the last step before dismissal. And in any of these situations, again, you can always go to human resources, or if you're at a really small company that doesn't have HR, who is the general manager that you can go to if you think you're not being treated fairly? But a note about HR, again, I've been on both sides of this. They're there to support you, but they serve the employer. So they may only be able to help you so much. So maybe it is time to get real. If you're on a PIP or you got some negative feedback and it just doesn't sit right with you, it just might not be the best use of your skill set or the right environment. It might not be you, it could be them. So try to make progress on these areas, even if you do decide to leave, so that way you can leave on a high note, you can leave on your own terms. But don't take it personally. I know it's like, well, it's my feedback. How can I not take it personally? But again, you are more than your job. And I have seen plenty of people in a mismatch. And if this isn't the right place for you, then let's get you into a job where you are productive, thriving, and valued. So to recap, you want to keep your cool and reflect on anything that could be valid in that feedback, follow up and clarify, get really clear on what they want you to do differently, and set up action plans and document along the way. And then plan your next steps, either personally or professionally. I am Diana Bernal. You can follow me on LinkedIn, subscribe to the podcast, or find me on Substack. You can also check out my website, Diana Inc., for more information. I'll see you next week.